Waitress fainting from exhaustion gets a $20,000 tip from Messi. How will this story unfold? To find out, watch the video to the end. But first, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications to get more stories like this. The city's vibrant energy pulsed through the bustling streets, the sun casting a warm glow on the pavement as people hurried to their destinations. Amidst the sea of faces, Elena, a hard-working waitress, made her way to the restaurant where she had been employed for the past few years. As she stepped through the doors, the familiar scent of sizzling dishes and the chatter of patrons greeted her. Elena tied her apron around her waist, readying herself for another demanding shift. Little did she know that this particular day would be one she would never forget. The restaurant was already packed, the tables filled with hungry customers eagerly perusing the menus. Elena took a deep breath, mentally preparing herself for the challenges ahead. She had been working tirelessly, covering for a sick coworker while juggling her own financial struggles. Despite the long hours and occasional rude customers, she kept a warm smile on her face, knowing that she had bills to pay and dreams to chase. As the orders began to pile up and the kitchen staff worked furiously to keep pace, Elena navigated the dining room with practiced efficiency. She took orders, delivered plates, and refilled drinks, all while maintaining a pleasant demeanor. However, the stress of the day started to take its toll, and Elena could feel her energy waning. Unbeknownst to her, a special guest had entered the restaurant, his presence going largely unnoticed amidst the chaos of the lunchtime rush. Lionel Messi, one of the greatest footballers of all time, had chosen this very establishment to enjoy a quiet meal. He sat in a corner, quietly observing the scene before him, unaware that his path would soon cross with Elena's in a most unexpected way. As the minutes ticked by and the demands of the customers grew more intense, Elena found herself struggling to keep up. She had been on her feet for hours, and the exhaustion was beginning to set in. The room seemed to spin around her, and she blinked rapidly, trying to clear her vision. Elena pushed through the fatigue, determined to finish her shift and earn the tips she so desperately needed. She approached the table, a smile plastered on her face, ready to take another order. But as she stood there, her vision blurred, and a wave of dizziness washed over her. Before she could react, Elena's knees buckled, and she collapsed in the middle of the dining floor. The sound of her tray clattering to the ground echoed through the restaurant, and a hush fell over the patrons. Some diners murmured in concern, their eyes wide with surprise and worry. Others simply looked on, uninterested, their focus quickly returning to their meals. The restaurant staff stood frozen, unsure of how to react to the sudden turn of events. Amidst the confusion and hesitation, one man immediately stood up from his seat. Lionel Messi, who had been quietly enjoying his meal in the corner, sprang into action. With a sense of urgency, he made his way through the crowded dining room, his eyes fixed on Elena's unconscious form. Messi knelt beside her, his voice calm but firm as he called for assistance. He checked her pulse and made sure she was breathing, his years of experience on the football field having taught him the importance of quick thinking and decisive action. As the restaurant staff finally snapped out of their stupor, they scrambled to help. They brought water and a cool cloth, following Messi's lead as he gently cared for Elena. The patrons watched in awe, their whispers growing louder as they realized who the kind stranger was. Elena's eyes fluttered open, and she found herself seated in a chair, a glass of water pressed into her hand. She blinked, trying to make sense of her surroundings, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment as the reality of the situation sank in. She had collapsed in the middle of the restaurant, in front of all the customers. The thought mortified her, and she quickly tried to stand up, mumbling apologies and insisting that she was fine. But a gentle hand on her shoulder stopped her. Elena looked up and found herself face to face with Lionel Messi, his eyes filled with concern and understanding. "You need to rest," he told her, his voice soft but firm. "Don't push yourself too hard." Elena's mouth fell open, her mind struggling to process the fact that one of the world's most famous athletes was standing before her, offering words of comfort. She nodded, too stunned to argue, and allowed herself to be eased back into the chair. As the restaurant manager approached, apologizing profusely to Messi for the disturbance, the footballer waved off the apologies. he turned his attention back to Elena, asking if she needed anything else, if there was someone he could call for her. Elena shook her head, tears welling in her eyes at the unexpected kindness. She had never experienced such genuine concern from a stranger, let alone a celebrity. Messi's compassion touched her deeply, and she found herself fighting back a sob. The manager, still flustered by the incident, insisted that Messi's meal would be on the house. But Messi politely declined, pulling out his wallet and handing over his credit card. He signed the bill, his expression thoughtful as he added a little extra something to the total. As Messi prepared to leave, he offered Elena a warm smile and a few more words of encouragement. Then, with a small wave, he disappeared into the night, leaving behind a stunned restaurant staff and a group of patrons who had just witnessed an extraordinary act of kindness. The restaurant slowly returned to its normal rhythm, the patrons resuming their conversations and the staff getting back to work. But there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a newfound sense of warmth and camaraderie that hadn't been there before. Elena sat in the chair, her mind reeling from the events that had just transpired. She had never imagined that a simple workday could take such an unexpected turn, that she would find herself on the receiving end of such generosity. As she took a sip of water, trying to gather her thoughts, the restaurant manager approached her once more. This time, he held a receipt in his hand, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Elena," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "you need to see this." He handed her the receipt, and Elena's hands shook as she read the numbers printed on the paper. There, at the bottom of the bill, was a tip that took her breath away, $20,000. Tears streamed down her face as the magnitude of Messi's generosity sank in. The tip was more than she made in months, enough to cover her rent, bills, and maybe even allow her a brief respite from the endless struggle of making ends meet. Elena looked around the restaurant, searching for Messi, wanting to express her gratitude. But he was already gone, having slipped away without seeking recognition or fanfare. He had simply wanted to help, to make a difference in someone's life. As the news of Messi's extraordinary act spread like wildfire through the restaurant, customers who had once been indifferent found themselves inspired. They began leaving larger tips, offering kind words to the staff, and treating each other with a newfound sense of compassion. The restaurant, which had once been just a place of work for Elena, now felt like a community, a place where people looked out for one another and celebrated the small acts of kindness that could change lives. In the days that followed, Elena's story became the talk of the town. Local media outlets caught wind of Messi's generous tip, and soon, the tale of the kind-hearted footballer and the hard-working waitress was making headlines. Elena found herself thrust into the spotlight, her face gracing the front pages of newspapers and her voice heard on radio interviews. She spoke of the challenges she faced as a waitress, the long hours and the demanding customers, and how Messi's act of kindness had given her a glimmer of hope in a world that often felt overwhelming. As her story spread, something remarkable began to happen. People from all walks of life started reaching out to Elena, offering words of support and encouragement. Some even sent donations, inspired by Messi's example and wanting to make a difference in their own way. Elena was overwhelmed by the outpouring of love and support. She had always believed in the inherent goodness of people, but to see it manifested in such a tangible way was truly humbling. She used the money from Messi's tip to pay off her bills and give herself a much-needed break. For the first time in years, she was able to take a few days off, to rest and recharge without the constant worry of financial strain. But Elena knew that the impact of Messi's kindness went far beyond the monetary value of the tip. It had shown her that even in the darkest of times, there were still people who cared, who were willing to lend a helping hand to a stranger in need. As she sat in the break room of the restaurant, holding the now famous receipt close to her heart, Elena felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew that she wanted to pay forward the kindness that had been shown to her, to make a difference in the lives of others just as Messi had done for her. Inspired by Messi's example, Elena began to look for ways to give back to her community. She started by volunteering at local homeless shelters and food banks, using her free time to serve meals and offer comfort to those who were struggling. She also became more involved in the restaurant, taking on a leadership role and working to create a more supportive and compassionate environment for her fellow staff members. She encouraged them to look out for one another, to lend a helping hand when someone was in need, and to celebrate the small victories that made their work worthwhile. As word of Elena's efforts spread, more and more people began to take notice. Customers would come to the restaurant specifically to see her, to thank her for the positive impact she was having on the community. Some even began to follow her example, volunteering their own time and resources to help those in need. It was as if Messi's act of kindness had started a ripple effect, inspiring others to be their best selves and to make a difference in the world. For Elena, the experience was life-changing. She had always known that she wanted to help others, but she had never imagined that she could have such a profound impact on so many lives. She realized that true greatness wasn't measured in goals or trophies, but in the way we lift others up, in the kindness we show to those who are struggling, and in the hope we bring to those who have lost their way. As she looked back on that fateful day in the restaurant, Elena knew that she would be forever grateful to Lionel Messi. Not just for the money he had given her, but for the lesson he had taught her about the power of compassion and the importance of never giving up on the goodness of the human spirit. Years passed, and Elena's life continued to be shaped by the lessons she had learned from Lionel Messi's act of kindness. She had become a respected leader in her community, known for her tireless work on behalf of those in need. She had started her own nonprofit organization, dedicated to providing support and resources to struggling families and individuals. She worked closely with local businesses and community leaders to create programs that addressed the root causes of poverty and inequality, and to give people the tools they needed to build better lives for themselves. Through it all, Elena never forgot the debt of gratitude she owed to Messi. She often spoke of him in her speeches and interviews, citing his example as proof that one person's kindness could change the world. And then, one day, something extraordinary happened. Elena received an invitation to speak at a major conference on social responsibility and philanthropy. As she stepped onto the stage, her heart racing with nerves and excitement, she looked out into the audience and saw a familiar face smiling back at her. There, in the front row, sat Lionel Messi himself, his eyes shining with pride and admiration. Elena's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she was transported back to that fateful day in the restaurant, when Messi's kindness had changed her life forever. As she began to speak, her voice strong and clear, Elena knew that she was standing on the shoulders of giants. She was there because of the kindness and generosity of people like Messi, who had shown her that anything was possible if you had the courage to dream big and the compassion to lift others up along the way. And as the audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation, Elena felt a sense of profound gratitude wash over her. She knew that she still had so much work to do, so many more lives to touch and hearts to inspire. But she also knew that she was not alone in this fight. That there were countless others out there, just like Messi, who believed in the power of kindness and the importance of never giving up on the human spirit. And with that knowledge, Elena stepped forward into the future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the strength and courage that comes from knowing that, together, we can change the world, one small act of kindness at a time. Elena's speech at the conference had a profound impact on all who heard it. Her words had struck a chord with people from all walks of life, inspiring them to look within themselves and ask what they could do to make a difference in the world. In the days and weeks that followed, Elena found herself inundated with messages and requests from people who wanted to learn more about her work and get involved in her cause. She was invited to speak at schools and community centers, to share her story and inspire a new generation of changemakers. And through it all, Messi remained a constant presence in her life. He had become a mentor and a friend, offering guidance and support whenever she needed it. He had even joined the board of her nonprofit, lending his expertise and his platform to help raise awareness and funds for their work. Together, Elena and Messi became a force for good in the world, a shining example of what was possible when people came together in the spirit of compassion and service. They worked tirelessly to address the challenges facing their communities, from poverty and homelessness to education and healthcare. They partnered with other organizations and leaders, building a network of support and collaboration that stretched across the globe. And as their impact grew, so too did the sense of hope and possibility that they inspired in others. People from all walks of life began to see that they too had the power to make a difference, that their actions, no matter how small, could have a ripple effect that would touch countless lives. For Elena, it was a dream come true. She had always known that she wanted to make a difference in the world, but she had never imagined that she would have the opportunity to do so on such a grand scale. And yet, even as she stood on the world stage, even as she rubbed shoulders with the most influential and powerful people on the planet, Elena never forgot where she had come from. She never forgot the struggles and the sacrifices that had shaped her, the long hours and the rude customers, the endless fight to make ends meet. And she never forgot the kindness and generosity of a single man, who had shown her that greatness wasn't measured in goals or trophies, but in the way we lift others up and give them hope for a better tomorrow. As the years passed, Elena's work continued to grow and evolve. She had become a global leader in the fight against poverty and inequality, a voice for the voiceless and a champion for the forgotten. She had met with world leaders and CEOs, had spoken at the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. She had been honored with awards and accolades, had been featured in documentaries and books. But through it all, Elena remained grounded in the lessons she had learned from Lionel Messi. She never forgot the power of a single act of kindness, the importance of seeing the humanity in every person, no matter their circumstances. She continued to work closely with Messi, drawing strength and inspiration from his unwavering commitment to making the world a better place. Together, they had started a foundation that focused on empowering young people from disadvantaged backgrounds, giving them the tools and the support they needed to build better lives for themselves and their communities. And as they watched the next generation of changemakers rise up, as they saw the seeds they had planted begin to bear fruit, Elena and Messi knew that their work was far from finished. They knew that there would always be more battles to fight, more challenges to overcome, more lives to touch and hearts to inspire. But they also knew that they were not alone in this fight. That there were countless others out there, just like them, who believed in the power of compassion and the importance of never giving up on the human spirit. And so, they pressed on, day after day, year after year, knowing that every small act of kindness, every moment of connection and understanding, was a step towards a brighter future for all. For Elena, it was a journey that had begun with a single act of kindness from a stranger in a restaurant. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a calling, a purpose, a way of life. And she knew that she would never stop fighting, never stop believing in the power of the human spirit to overcome even the greatest of challenges. Because in the end, that was what true greatness was all about. Not the goals we score or the trophies we win, but the lives we touch and the hope we bring to those who have lost their way. And that was a legacy that would endure long after the final whistle had blown, a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the unbreakable bond of our shared humanity. Years turned into decades, and Elena's impact on the world only continued to grow. She had become a global icon, a symbol of hope and resilience in the face of adversity. Her foundation had expanded to every corner of the globe, bringing education, healthcare, and opportunity to millions of people who had once been left behind. She had partnered with governments and corporations, had worked with grassroots organizations and community leaders, all in the name of building a more just and equitable world. And through it all, Messi had been by her side, a constant source of support and inspiration. Even as he retired from football and stepped back from the public eye, he remained deeply committed to the work they had started together. He would often visit the communities they served, would spend hours talking with the young people whose lives they had touched. He would listen to their stories and their dreams, would offer words of encouragement and wisdom. And he would always remind them of the lesson he had learned from Elena all those years ago, that greatness wasn't about the accolades or the achievements, but about the lives we touch and the love we share. As Elena looked back on her life, on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and gratitude. She had come so far from that day in the restaurant, when she had collapsed from exhaustion and despair. She had overcome so many obstacles and challenges, had touched so many lives and hearts. And yet, she knew that her work was far from finished. That there would always be more battles to fight, more lives to lift up, more hope to bring to those who had lost their way. But she also knew that she was not alone in this fight, that she had Messi by her side, and countless others who shared their vision of a world where every person was treated with dignity and respect. And so, she pressed on, day after day, year after year, knowing that every small act of kindness, every moment of connection and understanding, was a step towards a brighter future for all. Because in the end, that was what true greatness was all about. Not the goals we score or the trophies we win, but the lives we touch and the love we share. And that was a legacy that would endure long after we are gone, a testament to the enduring power of compassion and the unbreakable bond of our shared humanity. As Elena entered the twilight of her life, she began to reflect on all that she had accomplished and all that she had learned along the way. She thought back to that fateful day in the restaurant, when Lionel Messi's act of kindness had changed the course of her life forever. She remembered the way he had treated her with such compassion and respect, even as she lay there, exhausted and overwhelmed. And she realized that, in that moment, Messi had given her more than just a generous tip. He had given her a glimpse of what was possible when we open our hearts to one another, when we see the humanity in every person, no matter their circumstances. That lesson had stayed with her throughout her life, guiding her work and her relationships. It had inspired her to build a foundation that was dedicated to lifting up the most vulnerable and marginalized among us, to creating a world where every person had the opportunity to thrive. And it had taught her that true greatness wasn't about the accolades or the achievements, but about the way we treat one another, the way we show up for each other in times of need. As she looked around at the incredible community she had built, at the countless lives she had touched and the love she had shared, Elena knew that her legacy would live on long after she was gone. She knew that the seed she had planted would continue to grow and flourish, that the work she had started would be carried on by the next generation of changemakers and dreamers. And she knew that, in the end, that was all any of us could hope for. To leave the world a little bit better than we found it, to touch the lives of those around us with kindness and compassion. For Elena, that journey had started with a single act of kindness from a stranger in a restaurant. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a life lived in service to others, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome even the greatest of challenges. And as she looked out at the world she had helped to shape, Elena knew that her work was not yet finished. That there would always be more love to give, more hope to share, more lives to lift up. But she also knew that she had made a difference. That she had left a mark on the world that would endure long after she was gone. And that, in the end, was the greatest legacy of all. In the years that followed, Elena's story became the stuff of legend. It was told and retold, passed down from generation to generation as a testament to the power of kindness and compassion. People marveled at the way a single act of generosity had set in motion a chain of events that had transformed countless lives. They spoke of Elena and Messi as if they were heroes, larger-than-life figures who had dared to dream of a better world. But for those who knew them best, who had been touched by their love and their wisdom, Elena and Messi were simply two people who had chosen to live their lives in service to others. They were the ones who had shown up day after day, year after year, to do the hard work of building a more just and equitable world. They were the ones who had listened to the stories of the forgotten and the marginalized, who had lifted up the voices of those who had been silenced for too long. And they were the ones who had taught us that greatness wasn't about the accolades or the achievements, but about the way we treat one another, the way we show up for each other in times of need. As the world continued to change and evolve, as new challenges and opportunities arose, the legacy of Elena and Messi only grew stronger. Their foundation continued to thrive, bringing education and opportunity to millions of people around the globe. Their story continued to inspire new generations of changemakers and dreamers, reminding us of the incredible power we all hold to make a difference in the world. And their love continued to shine as a beacon of hope and compassion, a reminder that, even in the darkest of times, there is always a light that guides us forward. For Elena and Messi, that light had been each other. It had been the love they shared, the bond that had sustained them through all the struggles and the triumphs of their remarkable journey. And as they looked back on all that they had accomplished together, all the lives they had touched and the hearts they had opened, they knew that their love would endure long after they were gone. Because in the end, that was what true greatness was all about. Not the goals we score or the trophies we win, but the love we share and the lives we lift up along the way. As Elena and Messi entered the final chapter of their lives, they knew that their work was not yet finished. There were still so many battles to fight, so many lives to touch and hearts to open. But they also knew that they had built something that would endure long after they were gone. They had created a legacy of love and compassion, a testament to the incredible power of the human spirit to overcome even the greatest of challenges. And so, they began to plan for the future, to ensure that their vision would live on long after they were gone. They met with the leaders of their foundation, sharing their wisdom and their guidance. They mentored the next generation of changemakers and dreamers, passing on the lessons they had learned over a lifetime of service. And they continued to show up day after day, year after year, to do the hard work of building a more just and equitable world. Even as their bodies grew frail and their minds began to fade, Elena and Messi never lost sight of the love that had sustained them throughout their journey. They would often sit together in the quiet of the evening, holding hands and reminiscing about all the incredible moments they had shared. They would speak of the lives they had touched and the hearts they had opened, of the incredible community they had built and the love they had shared. And they would remind each other of the lesson they had learned all those years ago, when a single act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that had transformed the world. That lesson had stayed with them throughout their lives, guiding their work and their relationships. It had taught them that true greatness wasn't about the accolades or the achievements, but about the way we treat one another, the way we show up for each other in times of need. And as they looked out at the world they had helped to shape, Elena and Messi knew that their legacy would live on long after they were gone. They knew that the seeds they had planted would continue to grow and flourish, that the work they had started would be carried on by the next generation of changemakers and dreamers. And they knew that, in the end, that was all any of us could hope for. To leave the world a little bit better than we found it, to touch the lives of those around us with kindness and compassion. For Elena and Messi, that journey had started with a single act of kindness in a restaurant. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a life lived in service to others, a testament to the power of love to transform even the darkest of times. And as they looked out at the world they had helped to create, Elena and Messi knew that their work was not yet finished. But they also knew that they had made a difference. That they had left a mark on the world that would endure long after they were gone. And that, in the end, was the greatest legacy of all. In the end, Elena and Messi's story became a legend, a tale passed down from generation to generation as a testament to the enduring power of love and compassion. People spoke of them as if they were giants, larger-than-life figures who had dared to dream of a better world. They marveled at the way a single act of kindness had set in motion a chain of events that had transformed countless lives. But for those who had known them best, who had been touched by their love and their wisdom, Elena and Messi were simply two people who had chosen to live their lives in service to others. They were the ones who had shown up day after day, year after year, to do the hard work of building a more just and equitable world. They were the ones who had listened to the stories of the forgotten and the marginalized, who had lifted up the voices of those who had been silenced for too long. And they were the ones who had taught us that true greatness wasn't about the accolades or the achievements, but about the way we treat one another, the way we show up for each other in times of need. As the years passed and the world continued to change, the legacy of Elena and Messi only grew stronger. Their foundation continued to thrive, bringing education and opportunity to millions of people around the globe. Their story continued to inspire new generations of changemakers and dreamers, reminding us of the incredible power we all hold to make a difference in the world. And their love continued to shine as a beacon of hope and compassion, a reminder that, even in the darkest of times, there is always a light that guides us forward. For Elena and Messi, that light had been each other. It had been the love they shared, the bond that had sustained them through all the struggles and the triumphs of their remarkable journey. And as they took their final breaths, hand in hand, surrounded by the love and the gratitude of all those whose lives they had touched, Elena and Messi knew that their legacy would endure. They knew that the seeds they had planted would continue to grow and flourish, that the work they had started would be carried on by the next generation of changemakers and dreamers. And they knew that, in the end, that was all any of us could hope for. To leave the world a little bit better than we found it, to touch the lives of those around us with kindness and compassion. For Elena and Messi, that journey had started with a single act of kindness in a restaurant. But it had become so much more than that. It had become a life lived in service to others, a testament to the power of love to transform even the darkest of times. And as they closed their eyes for the final time, Elena and Messi knew that their story would live on, a shining example of what is possible when we open our hearts to one another and dare to dream of a better world. Because in the end, that is what true greatness is all about. Not the goals we score or the trophies we win, but the love we share and the lives we lift up along the way. And that is a legacy that will endure long after we are gone, a testament to the incredible power of the human spirit to overcome even the greatest of challenges and to build a world of compassion, justice, and love.